Let's do it.
3, 2... Oh, shit, we're running.
Hey
well,
guys.
it is our first video, so maybe we don't exactly know what we're doing yet with the technology.
And aptly enough, we're about to talk about failures.
Mm-hmm.
So this works out. So what we actually wanted to talk about is, after last night and after just talking to you guys a little bit about your projects, it seems like one thing that comes up is, oh shit, like I've created this whole big thing and I've put so much work into it, and if I fuck it up, like, that is it. Like,
life's over.
There's no coming back from this. And, you know, Chad posted this amazing map earlier today about how many times people fail on the road to creating something. And then I realized that, like, I don't know how often we communicate how many failures we've gone through to get to this point. So this is us wearing our heart on our sleeves a little bit and telling you about some of the ways we fucked up and are still fucking up.
Yeah, and I actually want to pre-frame some of this, because I think the post even had a bit of framing of it too, is like the idea of reframing a failure as just a way that it didn't work, you know, or as a learning opportunity, you know. And so what I want from this is not just for us to talk about how we fucked up, but also in the fucking up of it, what did we learn that now serves us?
Point.
Right? Yeah.
Hopefully. Sometimes
I fucked it up. I didn't learn a damn thing.
I fucked it up and I learned that I could fuck it up and still live.
That's an important lesson.
Totally.
It's a survival lesson, yeah. So, you want to go first or you want me to go first?
You can go first.
I can go first? Okay. Oh, goodness gracious. Okay, so one of the more embarrassing ones was I was in my mid-20s, and I had a friend who was, we were both pretty smart guys, and we listened to one of those, like, programs on tape. I think it was called Your Secret Wealth. The guy's name's Jay Abraham. He's like this marketing wizard. Mm-hmm. And we, you know, it took whatever. The program's like a couple hours long, and we get to the end of it, and we're like, we should start a marketing business. There was some reason we thought we were now marketing experts because we had listened to a 5-hour tape record, you know, of a marketing expert. And so we printed up business cards, and we started trying to find businesses who would listen to us, and it was just a miserable failure. Like, we got 0 clients. And it was really kind of embarrassing and depressing. But I will say the 2 things I learned from that was you have to know something. Like, you're not an expert just by reading something. And so that kind of got me situated in the reality of, like, not only do I need to know more so that I can show up more powerfully, but other people are going to need to know that I have something. It's also this frame of, like, cerebral knowledge is not that more long-term embodied knowledge of you, like, really knowing something at a more of a cellular level because you've been doing it for a while. And that was a huge lesson for me. I think I said 2 things, but I think that's the only thing I learned from that one. Thank God it didn't last very long. All right, that was kind of embarrassing to talk about. Your turn.
Oh dear. God, I think one of my biggest fuck-ups was my project before I started Authentic Relating Things. There were a couple, but the main one was I planned on making a documentary. Mm-hmm. And just the whole thing was totally a mess. Like, I think we
Can you be more specific?
Yeah. Oh, fuck. Okay. So, over the period of the film's existence, I had never touched a camera in my life. Like, I didn't know the first thing about film. And I also didn't know the first thing about managing a team of people. So I'm going in, like, totally naive, and the project started, like, people started responding to it and getting excited, and, like, I started thinking that the project could be bigger than it could be, in part because Austin is a town with, like, tons and tons of people who are filmmakers, who are willing to work pro bono, but only, like, to, like, the end of the first meeting. So, and I had no idea how to keep people on. Yeah, but I didn't have people management skills either. So there was something like 20 or 30 people who came on and dropped off over the course of the project.
Wow.
We kept changing, editors, primary filmmakers, like producers, directors. Like, the only fucking person that stayed on, but who'd been there at the beginning was me.
Wow.
And it went from, like, we're just going to make this, like, small film to, oh, well, people are interested in this. Like, we should raise a bunch of money and make this a big film. And so we did like a massive Kickstarter and got our friends and family to contribute and raise the money. The issue was like, I don't know how to do post-production to save my life. So on the road, you know, we traveled for 2 months filming and our crew almost fell apart because we had constant conflict with each other all the time, and we somehow assumed
you hadn't had the AR skills to navigate it.
Yeah,
right?
we assumed we'd just be in a car together and magically get along. And it didn't help that, like, you know, apparently part of relating to people is not being on the phone with your boyfriend that you're fighting with the entire time.
Sounds like there was a lesson in that.
I didn't really relate with the crew very much. And so it was like this mismatch where we ended it and there was no story, and we just had like 2 terabytes of footage sitting on a hard drive.
Wow.
And I still haven't finished it.
Massive input and no like finished output.
Yeah, no team. I'm still the only person working on it, and I'm not even working on it. The Kickstarter awards are like 3 years overdue. It's like a big breach of integrity for me, actually. And the whole process of it was just this like, oh my God, like I am doing everything wrong here. And every time somebody drops off the team, I took it really personally and didn't quite know how to get started with things again.
Right. Now, that's, I mean, I'm, like, that was painted as a pretty big, like, it almost sounds like this huge it is, like, it's huge heartache and this huge investment in time that you could almost see was wasted, like, what did you take away from it? You had to take, I mean, I'm really
there was lots of things. Like, one of them is just managing people. I think the big lesson I got on that actually was I was working on somebody else's project. I followed the film thing for a little while because after I'd, you know, done at least the pre-production and the production of the film, people seemed to think I was a filmmaker. So I decided to film this series of acro yoga videos for a teacher in town. And at one point I got dispirited with it and I almost fell off the project. And he picked up the thread and he came to me and he was like, hey, like, you know, what's up? Like, I want you back on this project. And somehow that piece of, oh, wait, somebody's falling off my project or somebody like seems upset or dispirited and I don't have to just like let them go into the ether. Like I can ask them what's up. So that was one like big thing that I got later on is that like as much as like I felt personally wounded when people dropped off, I could still continue to relate to them and that might actually shift things. Right. And the other thing what did I get from it? That I think one thing is like as much as I plan big, actually being able to scale down to completion is crucial. And just because something can get really big doesn't mean that it should.
Should get really big. Oh, I like that. Sounds like a great lesson right there.
Yeah.
I mean,
just because there's
a lot bones, of potential. Right? It's not like this isn't some intellectual concept. It's like in your being. Yeah, that's why I have this frame now of like really only doing things where the energy is already moving in that direction because like again and again I've got burned by these situations where I've let myself become the center of a massive edifice and just like people start to get burnt out and they drop off and then I'm at the center of it and I don't have the option to drop off because it's my baby. Right.
And so now I like am very careful in how big I let things get and who I ask to help me as I see them getting bigger.
I want to underscore something that feels important to me here too, which is that the learning you have from that is way different than an intellectual concept. And I think there's this hookup between, like, if you were to have read that in a book, you know, that wouldn't be in your felt sense, which means it wouldn't be available to your intuition when you're feeling into something the same way it is if you had, because you tried and you failed and it was baked in at a deeper level. And I think that kind of failure and learning is one of the big advantages of it is those lessons become part of your felt sense. They're not just a concept that you read in a book that you need to avoid.
Totally.
It's much more. That was a deeper intelligence you acquire.
That was a journey of like 2 years of just like constant trying and failing and having like crazy relationship shit in the middle of it and founding the authentic relating community while the film was still going on and it was just a mess.
Yeah. I got one.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's.
You embarrass
I
yourself.
like the ones that are the good ones are the ones that are embarrassing. I'm sorry.
I felt some like, well, now everybody knows that I have a massive film that I raised a whole bunch of money for that I've never paid back. So you go ahead.
Okay, I don't know if I can top that one, but I'm gonna do my best because this was definitely one of my more embarrassing bits. So, and I want to say that I'm pretty sure I read this in a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad by a guy named Robert Kiyosaki, and the stat may not be perfect, but the idea is like entrepreneurs on average will fail like the first 4 times they try something. It's actually completely normal to bomb and you get up and try again and bomb and you get up and try again then you pick up each failure has a learning piece, and then by the 5th or 6th time oftentimes then you've learned enough, and then you've got the base, and you can actually launch something that's going to stick. And so one of my 4 or 5, however many failures it was and I can't remember how I got onto this idea, but I thought, oh, wouldn't it be cool if I bought like super electronic stuff and resold it on eBay? So I found this system where you could buy wholesale electronics returned from I guess it was like people would buy something at Target and they would return it, and that would go into this pile, and you could buy it for like super cheap, just this miscellaneous electronic stuff. I thought, oh, I'll buy it and it'll be so cheap, and I'll resell it on eBay and make a ton of money, and I won't have to work for anybody else. And so I pulled the trigger. I spent it was thousands of dollars I spent, and I get the thing, and it shows up at my house, and it's this giant box, and I'm looking at it and I'm going, it looks like a box of junk. I mean, it literally, I don't know how I'm going to even make my money back. It started out as disaster, right? It wasn't even like I was hopeful when it arrived. It was just a disaster, and so I'm looking down the barrel of this stuff, and like some of it's broken, some of it obviously needs to be repaired, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm gonna be lucky if I even get my money back, and so, but I did. I didn't just give up. I didn't just throw it away. I actually thought I'm gonna try anyways because I don't know what's gonna happen, and so it took me 6 months. Everything that I could fix, I fixed. Everything that I could sell on eBay, I sold on eBay. I sold a couple things at a yard sale. And my net profit from 6 months of effort was minus $200. And so, yeah, it was tremendously frustrating to put in that much work and make no money. I felt like, entrepreneurially, I felt like a failure. However, I definitely gained some determination. Like there was this moment where I just buckled down. I was like, I'm at least going to make my money back. And I basically did. So there was sort of a lesson in if I just apply myself, and stay determined, even something that looked hopeless could be salvaged, I suppose. And the other thing was, all that selling on eBay was a lot of customer service, and I'd never done customer service before. And I just learned the subtleties of customer service, like how do you handle a complaint, how do you clarify something when people don't understand what it is, stuff like that. And that served me in my current business, because the current business has its own customer service challenges. And so I took that with me, even though I made no money. I took the lessons. The lessons are with me forever.
And an awesome thing about Chad is he's founded a couple of businesses now and still kept going. Regardless of what's happened in them, and has a really wide skill set with all of that, and I imagine because of that. Some of
it was in external success, and some of the skill sets were developed in things that would be more traditionally seen as failures.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'll I guess just give a little more to close. I'll say I actually feel super self-conscious telling stories because I don't think I have a great memory, so these may be short on details, but I want to give just some examples from the authentic community and starting that in the realm of feeling burnt out and failing something in the moment, that was very present for me the first couple years that the community existed. There were several occasions where I was so overwhelmed at a games night, not knowing what to do, or feeling like I had somehow not listened closely enough or considered the opinion of one of my facilitators, or there was a conflict in the night that I would literally have to go out back and cry hysterically for 10 minutes.
Wow.
And come back in and keep facilitating.
Pull it together and keep facilitating.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was and I didn't know, and the community wasn't at the point where people really knew how to support support me in that, and I wasn't letting them know that it was happening.
And so there was like this way that this load was all on you.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there was a point, like, over the summer, I left for a summer to get trained in Boulder in circling, and I left the community with one of the facilitators leading, and the community stopped. Like, there were a couple potlucks, but the games nights basically stopped running, and I'm in Boulder, like, unable to do anything about
I
it.
can feel the panic in my body listening to you
Yeah,
say
it was
that.
like, oh fuck, like I gave my baby away, and now it's like
starving, it's dying.
Yeah, and it was like this feeling of like, what have I worked for, and what is my value if that doesn't live on?
Yeah.
And then even while I was in Boulder, like I was getting trained in circling, and it was like I was like making this commitment of like, you know, like it had to be like almost close to $10,000 to like take the training, fly out there each month, live there for a summer, and during it, like my relationship and the business that I had founded with the guys I started the community in Houston with was falling apart. It was like
everything that you were training for was evaporating, basically.
Right. And then, you know, at the end of the training, like, the last thing that happened was in the last circle I led, I bombed it, in my mind, so badly that I did not circle for, I think, at least 4 months after completing training.
You were just afraid to have that bad of an experience again?
Yeah, it was like I was in the moment with somebody, and it was like a guy who was like really uncomfortable and introverted. Like, he was a computer programmer with Google, who had like a ton of repressed stuff going on. Like, it was like every word he said came out like a fuck you. Like, that was the feeling behind it.
And you weren't very far along in your training and skill either.
No, I mean, like, but this was at the end of the training. Like, I'd gone through 6 months of training. Like, I should have been able to deal with this situation. I've been leading Authentic Community for, like, over a year.
I should have been able to deal with it.
Totally, yeah. Like, it was like, I should be better at this. I was certified in circling at that point. I had been leading community for a year. And yet I'm in the circle with this guy, and I'm having the feeling of, like, Alice down the rabbit hole of like, if I poke this guy in the slightest, he's gonna pop, and I'm not gonna know what to do with it. And so we're in this incredibly uncomfortable space for like 15 or 20 minutes of just like, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to do. I'm leading the circle, and like half the course leads are in the circle watching me fail.
Right.
And at some point, like, they actually took over. They were just like, we're not dealing with this anymore. And they poked him, and he cracked and flipped out, and I didn't circle for 4 months.
Yeah. Wow. The main thought that comes in my mind is like, I'm so glad you got back on the bicycle. You know, like, so much would have been lost if you would have just said that you weren't any good at it, or, you know.
But even after that, like,
chills, like thinking that.
It took me until at least the next year. Like, I mean, I started doing a little bit of circling, but I didn't bring labs or classes to Austin until John and Sean came to town, and Jordan actually started pushing it forward. And then, you know, having somebody at my back, like having a team, that's what made the difference for me, where like I had enough support that I could screw up or feel like I'd screwed up and still be okay.
Yeah.
So that's actually something I want to offer you guys, that like, it's two things. One, like, failure is going to feel like the end of the world, because in a sense your conception of who you are as somebody who can handle things that are thrown at you, like, that self in a way dies or gets challenged. And then you rebuild, but in the moment it feels like the end of the world.
Yeah.
And so one thing is just, that's going to happen, and it's not the end of the world, and you will always learn something from it. Like, it will always be worthwhile.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, especially in this community, you don't have to do it alone.
Right, and tying into that piece you said at the end, where that was a big part of your, I guess, recovery. Was having some support. Yeah, and the other thing that springs to my mind too that feels really important is, I mean, I watch you facilitate, and often just I see your mastery of it. I really feel like you probably get a lot of feedback now. People are like, wow, Sarah is so amazing at facilitation, and like, and here like you're sharing these ways that you felt so unmasterful. That there's a journey that you went through to get where you are, and I've had the same thing in my life where people go, it's so great that you built this business where it basically pays the bills and you can do whatever you want. And it's like, it is. And man, you don't know, like I was so not that when I was in my early 30s. I had no career, I had no prospects. I mean, I know what it was like to feel lost in that way. And so the mastery I have now was not always that way.
Yeah.
And I think that you can probably see that in almost everybody. Almost every person who's, no matter what level of wild success they have, probably has stories just like you and I are telling, so.
And is still on that process.
And still on that process.
Even now, you guys were all in the facilitator training last weekend, and I, like, the conflict that was there on the first day, I went home that night thinking, like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, how did I just let that blow up in the group? And one of the participants called me on Saturday morning and said, I'm not coming back.
Wow.
And I was on the phone with her for 20 minutes, like, going, I'm scared right now. Like, I don't know if I made the right choice. I don't know what that conflict was in service of. Like, I have an idea of what could emerge from it, but I feel all the time like I'm just, like, floating on uncertainty and hoping that something good will come out of it, and trusting that even if it doesn't, I'll have learned something along the way.
Right. And see, I sit here next to you thinking, like, I want to support you in that. Even if you're scared, like, I want you to know that you've done so many amazing things already. Even if that comes up, that keep going. Like, it's just that I can feel like, no, keep going. I get that it can be scary, but I want you to keep going, because if you stop, like, all this amazing stuff that you're putting in the world is going to stop,
Thanks.
Sarah, say yes. She gave me a cookie that says say yes on it. It's a little heart, and I'm like, just remember the say yes cookie whenever you're feeling down.
The benefits of authentic relating is that you get to give each other heart-shaped cookies at business meetings.
Yep.
All right, guys.
I want to offer, maybe you will, but I just want to say, like, I would love to hear, like, we've just poured our hearts out, and I would love for you guys to post anything that, like this on the Facebook group, If there's something you want to share, a spectacular failure that had lessons in it, and the rest of us would love to hear it, I think.
Or even failures you've seen of ours that you want to comment on. On the lessons you've learned from that.
Okay.
No, that actually is another side, though. It's like, what lessons have you learned from our failures?
That's true, yeah. I'm open to that. Thanks for saying that.
Yeah, Constructive criticism, always good, right?